I have a great new mimic panel for Ashford Station. With the help of a few good friends, let's just see how I got on and how I built it. Hi guys, and welcome back to Sandling Junction. Now the reason that you're getting an intro before the intro is for a couple of reasons. One, this has been built for a couple of 3 months now, and I've been using it extensively on the layout. And the reason for that is it took an awful long time to get all the footage together into some form of order, short enough that didn't put you all to sleep, hopefully it doesn't, and enough for you to enjoy and get something from at the end of the video. Now, with all that said, the second reason is that, as I said to you just now, it's been filmed over a period of time. So I've got lockdown hair now, and when we get into the video, you'll see it's a different time of year, and I had more hair on my head at the time. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the former me a few months ago, when we started the project to build this lovely new mimic panel for Ashford Station. And I will add just quickly that there are now others that have been made, and we'll get to those in another future video. So enjoy this one, catch you all soon, stay safe, happy modelling, all the best to you guys and girls. Bye bye, bye bye for now. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sandling Junction. This video is all about the project that I'm planning to build the mimic panels for Sandling Junction. Now, those of you who've been following me for a while will know that a few videos ago, if I can lift this up, I created this big monstrosity. And it actually, you can see, it's the whole of my layout, and put this to one side before I hurt myself. It was the whole of my layout of Sandling Junction, and it had so many wires underneath it. It sat on a great big trolley table which had to be slid in and out of the area, and to do any work on it, it had to come all the way out, lift it all the way up. It presented major issues. It was just too big, too cumbersome. And so when I changed my system for controlling my points to that of DccConcepts Cobalt IPs, it was the relationship that I built up over a period of time with John at DccConcepts and all the other guys there. They're all great guys, but in particular John, who has sort of, I've got to say, almost led me by the hand. He's been very instrumental in helping me develop the ideas for the mimic panels that will appear in due course on Sandling Junction. What am I using for push buttons and toggle switches? Okay, well, very simply, we're using center return toggle switches, and I know Paul from Galgorm in his recent video couldn't remember the letters. I'm not even going to go that far. I can't even think of where they are and what they're called, so Paul was brave to keep having a stab at them. I don't. These are just center return toggle switches, and that's the end of it. Okay, so wherever I turn it to, they will go back to the center. That's the plan. The push buttons are simply push to put on and pushed off. I think they call that push to make, but whatever that is, these are simply, they're red, so they show up against all the tracks, and so that's what I'm using there. So the holes, what we've designed is, I'm going to show you on the small one to begin with, and that is that we've got the board, which is 3mm MDF. We've got the wrong size one. There we go, get the right one. What we've got is I've pre-cut, luckily I've got the equipment at work to do this, but I've got 3mm MDF, which you cannot buy from a sort of B&Q type store. This is very much the preserve of a picture framer's supply company. In my area down in the southeast and down through the south is a company called Wessex. There are many such suppliers over the country, and it's well worth looking in or googling for picture frame supply companies in your area. They do two sizes normally. They'll do a 2.4 and they'll do this 3. The 3 is pretty much ideal. Gives a bit more rigidity when it's in place, but it also is about right just to take the nuts and the threaded area and allow the tightening up of the switches, and the LEDs can push through and all the rest of it. So what I've done is, as you've seen, I've printed these off on high quality photo paper. We used a matte paper so that it wasn't a double gloss situation. And then I've encapsulated these in a standard encapsulating machine. And when I trialed out the earlier version, I was worried about when I punched holes through these that I would create an opening where dirt and that could get in. Now that would be sealed, and it was really important that when we did this that we actually bought units that had little screw threads like the buttons and like the LEDs that will push through from the top, I believe, and the toggle switches. They all have clamps that will clamp the paper down. But even so, it would have been nice to have had it so that they didn't open up once you release the pressure of the seal on the side here. We found that punching it kept that seal. The little dots, we kept trying to, and they almost, as though that the heat is almost glued itself to the paper in certain ways, so it hasn't opened up, which is a good point. It really does help. So what do? Well, I will show you, but very briefly. We created this with the correct size circles, which are, in the case of the toggle switches and the push buttons, are a 7mm hole. And we created 7mm holes. We also put a crosshair right in the middle. So the idea being that I intend to fix this down to this board. And then I'm going to use a punch or a bradawl or something to go through right on that point of that crosshair, and that will mark all the positions for a one of those wood drills with a little spike on the end of it, okay, and a 7mm version of that. So that creates that. And then what I will do is, whilst this is still in place, use a 7mm hole punch to punch all these discs out and get them ready. And again, I can do one of two things then. The board underneath will then be marked with both the punch mark and also I hope a bradawl mark, so I can center the drill and put it all the way through. And I can take this off while I do that, because obviously I don't want to miss anything and rip into this. So that will come off out of the way, and then I will then continue to drill through in the right position. So in theory, if I get it right and don't get silly over any of it, that this will go back on. It can then be glued down in place over the holes that are all prepared and ready to go. All then I will have to do is to wire up all the switches and all the LEDs and get them ready to fit, and then we make the box to house everything. Okay, so this is just a quick little how-to in part of the making process, and it's really just how to wire up these push to make buttons on here, two prong, 2 elements at the end, and of course you've got these which are the 3 on the center sprung, so they return to the center when they're activated. So there we go. All I've done is I'm going to strip off. I've measured all these, probably way too long. I don't need to have, I don't think, so much wire, but I felt, why not? It's there. And a lot of these pieces are actually bits that I've used in previous projects, and I'm just reusing the wire in that fashion. Okay, so what I do is I am just turning this and putting it through one of these loops like so, and get it all through properly on itself like so. A couple of twists to hold it in place. That's all that's going to have, and the same with the red. I'm only going to do this the once just to give an idea of how this is done. Do that. Okay, if you were just wiring up temporary thing just to try something, but essentially you do need them to be properly fixed and soldered, because they will not be stable otherwise. Now ideally you do need to have and make sure that you try and wire these the same on each one. 3 different color wires, and I'm using 7 strand or 702 wire. That's all it needs. It could even be a bit smaller, but there are on these particular ones there are 2 plaques with information on. So if you just keep one, doesn't matter which way you do this, but if you just keep one to one side of you and always wire the same way. So I'm going to be wiring black to this one like so, and just turn it a couple of turns just to hold it there. Bit of flux onto the terminal. And all I'm going to do, as I say, is put heat shrink over these areas here, so that it doesn't matter what these happen in the future, they will not touch and will not cause a short. So that's one toggle switch and one push to make switch ready to go. Okay, only another 100 or 200 or more to do. No, not that many, but quite a few. Okay, this has taken a few hours just to get this lot done. These are the switches, the center throw switches, which I have given a very long line to. I'm not quite sure how much I will need, certainly in the bigger boxes, but I've allowed for that. But I've soldered each one on exactly in the same way on each, so I can make that work whatever I come up to do. They've had heat shrink put on, and there are, I think, about 20 here. And then I've got 19 of these press button, push to make buttons. And again, they have had a very long line put on them, about 16 inches I've allowed, but I don't know what I'm going to need. And of course, heat shrink. So what I'm going to do now, move these out the way, and I want to get this set up now so that I can punch the holes through. And I had a trial run on another one, and these crosshairs okay, but I wouldn't bother with those. If you've got a good punch and you can make the circles exactly the size of the punch, that's the best way forward, because if you put these in first, then they don't always hit dead center. So I decided that that's not the way to go. I might even, I don't know if I did film it, but if I don't like the footage, I probably won't put any in. There's probably no point. But if I do, then you'll see what I mean. Otherwise, just go with the punches on the respective sizes, and you'll be fine. On this occasion, the lights are the DCC lights, the LEDs that you can get, and so they're 5.5. Sorry, I'm telling you a fib. They're 6.5 mil, but I'm drilling 6 mil holes, and from that point of view, they are just a very snug, tight fit when it comes to pushing those in. And the others, these switches are a perfect for 6mm, so that's fine too. Conversely, these push to make are 7mm, so I have a 7mm punch and a 7mm drill for those. So with that said, I'm going to get this lined up, and I will start. I'll do a time lapse. I think you don't want to see me punching all these silly holes, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll start drilling through them, and hopefully at the end of it we'll have this ready to start fitting some of this hardware. All right. Well, that was a bit of a mammoth task, and during the course of the drilling and the sanding of the MDF, you do need to make sure that you're wearing one of these, because MDF is it will go dusty, and it is not a pleasant substance if it gets on your lungs. So that's just a word of warning. But all said and done, we have the thing sorted. If I get it the right way around, it will be. So you can see it there, and hopefully I've got it. I still haven't got it in the right place. There you go. And everything lines up beautifully. What I'm going to do now tonight and finish off is to seal this MDF. I don't want it warping later on, so I'm going to give this an all-round coat of varnish to make sure it's sealed up, and then that will give me a good key base to then glue this next to the board and make sure that that's finished off before we start putting all the hardware in place. So I'll come back when I've done this and this is dry, and I'll glue this on, and once it's all sorted out we'll proceed. Okay, welcome back, and I have sealed this board, as you can see, and I have glued this piece down to the board, and that's gone off, so I'm happy with that. Now I've got to think about putting all of these and the switches in here, so that's what I'm going to start doing. Now I am not going to how shall I say, I'm not going to put a final fitting in, just showing you really a few of them and what will happen. I hope this goes to plan. I'll put the rear collet nut on the upside down on this one, so it doesn't pull it away from the thing. There's a little flange there which I'm going to put in this way, and I will do it in that fashion, and that will go in on there. I've got this right, I hope I have. There we are. So that's the first one, and I hope well, it almost does the job. Whether or not that looks sort of pretty enough to use moving forward, I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to go and get a light, and they're nice and easy because they're very easy plug and play, so hopefully we can just poke that through and wiggle this into place. It's quite tight. Arguably a little too tight. Okay, I got rather an awkward size file, but what I've just done is just turned the edge of that into the hole, just a little bit, not doing too much to it, but just enough to take out a bit more material, and I hope that will push in place as the other one did. The build so far has gone well. I've yet to make a box to go underneath the first panel, but as you can see from this, the first panel is complete. I think that is showing up in nice detail, but all the switches are north-south, and all the buttons, all the lights are ready and in, and of course we've got all the buttons for the turntable when we finally get that put in. But there you go. So that's fine. What worries me, I've got to say, is that lot on the back. Yeah, I don't make much sense of that right now, but I'm really pleased. It's not been easy. My fingers feel like they've been through a wringer. I can't even feel the end of one, holding on to these small bits and pieces. Okay everyone, and welcome back. Now this is the state of play so far. I have, as you can see, I've drilled and fitted all the hardware. It's not been tested in terms of operationally yet, but everything is working in terms of the toggles, and I hope the lights all are working too. But it looks very good in my opinion. It's to this point it's finished, and now we've got to turn my attention to fitting the underneath and getting everything in place. What I need to do, and I've also discussed this with John from DccConcepts, who has told me precisely how they do theirs. So armed with that information, my friend and I set about setting this one up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get this ready to go and wired in before we actually make the box on this occasion. So let me turn this over now. Last time you saw this, there was a humongous amount of wiring underneath. It still is, but it's now rather more organized, as you can see. There are sets of wires that are configured to go into certain ways, and although these look massively long, yes of course they are, but when I wired these in, I didn't know exactly how much I would need. So these are going to be cut right down. It's not going to get in the way. So what we did is we took the idea from John of bridging with timber, but we took it a little stage further, we hope. And we've created these little, if I get this under the camera, these small bridging sections, 2 to every unit. There are 2 different sizes because we are making some lower than others, so that we have 2 levels, so that wiring will not get in the way, and that the stiffer ribbon wire, such as these cables that need to go in and be sorted, can not impinge on anything else. So what we've got is lower ones for the lights and higher ones for things like the NCE panel that to go in here, and also the alpha encoders. So we have several of those ready to go. I'll take one of these out for instance. This is one of the alpha encoders, and this will then sit over this way like so, and the other one will go this way, and so, or we can have them both one way and then this way. Okay, so it might be a lot easier in terms of reading and when it comes to programming. My friend is a really kind gentleman, and he has gone to great lengths to work out in fantastic detail how this would all work. And to that end, we bought some very special screws that are, I can find the details of these if anyone is interested. This is a trial one. It will come off, this is only screwed in. What he actually created, and I don't know if you can see that there, he actually created some very fine washers to go around for the screws. Now these are plastic washers, but because of the thinness of the screw, it's almost impossible to buy them or source them. So we've made plastic washers, and they are going into the pre-drilled holes here. This is just a test piece. We tested the glue and how it would work, and we are happy that these will stay glued with the high power fast glues. Okay, so this is as far as I've got at the moment. I have put all of these together, and they're roughly in the places that they will be glued into. This lot will be sorted out in due course. What I will be doing is I'm going to reduce this amount of wiring. There's enormous, there are 38 of these, and what I'm going to be doing is, before I glue this down, I shall be taking all the commons and cutting them and wiring them into a very, very small mini bus wire that's just literally going to take all of these, going to solder all these very short to a bus wire so that they can come on to a single common, and then it'll only be the 19 red wires that will go into these holes, and therefore reduce the amount of wire there. This lot, of course, are operating all the points, and these are the toggle switches, and they will be severely cut down and will be put into these same looms but much closer together and fan out and go where they should go here. So a lot of this wire will be cut back. Welcome back, and we are now ready to glue this all down. What I'm going to do is I've got to make sure that I've got the walls of the box, which will be made to the same size as this top board, will be 9mm. So I make sure that I've got plenty of clearance from here, 9mm, so I can get the row of plugs in on this side of the lighting and any other apparatus that I need to. So I've got to make sure that there is sufficient gap. Okay, so that's going to be roughly there, and I think that's quite a bit of room for any of this wiring to take place. So my next job is I'm just going to draw around certainly 3 sides of each of the feet where they're going to go. Excuse my head in the picture. Alright, I think that's sufficient. So I now can see where this one's going to go. So my next task will be to put a little spray of activator on each of these points, and almost the same time put the dobs of glue on the bottom of these, and then just press it home, and hopefully that should be sufficient. So just a little activator on there and on these should do the job. Let's hope we've done the job properly. 1, 2. Just what I didn't want to happen. Okay. Didn't expect that to do that, but it's done it. And let's hope that there is sufficient activator left on here to do its job. Just going to give it a quick spray again and wipe off that glue, and let's just quickly put this in place. Now that didn't quite go to plan, but let's hope that the rest of it does. Well, I didn't expect that to go like that, and it was that glue that came out all of a sudden that messed me up. And I've got to be a bit careful now because I've got glue on there, I've got glue everywhere, glue on my fingers, which is never a great plan. Okay, so that's almost where it should have been, and hopefully that will be staying put. So let's move this all out the way. Let's look at this second one. I'm going to move that for a second out the way, and I'm going to put that there, but I just need to check this one because obviously I need enough room here, and I also need to have this one. Now I've got room to push stuff in through here, that's fine. Now, my only worry with this one is that a lot of the terminals being used are down here as well as here and here. So I'm hoping that there's enough to get the wires in here before I have any other problems. And as I've said, that once this is done, it will be hinged up and it will be like so. So in theory, I can take wires and put them into these points here. I felt that it was better to do it that way and have these which are less movable. Any of these that need these RJ12s, I think they're called. And they're a little less flexible in terms of wiring. So I'm going to have some small ones made up which will do the job. But hopefully now you can see that we are ready to start up the wiring part of this, and yeah, we can carry on. And once the wiring's done, it's a case of just seeing what lights up when I connect it with the RJ12s into the black box of my ProCab, and that will deliver the power, and I hope that that will be fantastic, and we can start seeing which of these lights up what. But then of course I've then got to address everything, and so that when I do flick the right point switch, it will move the right point. And that might involve moving and putting two of these in and just swapping them around. It's a bit of an unknown quantity at the moment, but hopefully we will get that sorted out. Okay, so that is the all the cabling for the toggle switches. It's all in place. They're all nicely sat, and they're all crimped off with cable ties, trying to make them as neat as I possibly can, and so that there's as little disturbance as possible. And you'll see that I have done red green and black on each one, and they number from 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 and 30. That's the way and the order of it, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Now I have to start by doing all the lights, and I will figure that out and carry on with this job. Okay everyone, welcome back, and I gotta say that was a bit of a long-winded pig of a job. This was fine. I had no real problems with any of this section of it, but it's when I come to put these in. Now there's nothing wrong with the system, that's all very perfect, and it is just literally plug and go. Welcome back everyone, and you see me at a point where we're operational. Now to get from where you last saw to this has taken pretty much a whole day of work, in as much as you saw me putting these in, or at least starting and the finish. Now I did, and I will apologize, I did take an awful lot of time lapse of that process, but crazily I pressed the button, deleted it. I hadn't meant to, and the moment I pressed that button I realized what I'd done, but hey, it's just too late. So I had to go on without that time-lapse footage. Having said that, obviously you know how to put a wire in as easy as I do, so it would have been mind-numbingly boring to go through a whole speeded up version of me putting all these wires in. Now with that said, I will, and I promise that when I get to the next one of these that I do for Sandling Junction, I will make sure that it's the smaller of them all, and therefore easier to show and demonstrate it bit by bit, as it were. So those bits that I've missed out of this one will be in that one. This one, to get it to this point when it's been operational, has taken pretty much a whole day's work and many hours on the phone with John at DccConcepts. I mean, the guy deserves a medal, it's got to be said. But he has helped me bit by bit through this. Now, this is where you do need to be careful. And this, excuse me, this I think was very much the most complicated one. Well, I say it's the second most complicated one that I could have tackled. I wanted to do it because I was so desperate to see some automation on the Ashford Station. So I did persevere with this one, but it has a whole heap of toggles, has a whole heap of lights, it has 2 light boards, and it has 2 alpha encoder units inside, and all in a very small space. So working in this environment is quite small. I could have made a much bigger one, but of course much bigger ones need that much more space to use and put them on one thing or another. The NCE panel and the wiring for it has not been done yet. It is the next project, not because I need to get it up for the turntable, purely so that I can finish this box off that's been done, and therefore we can move forward and get this put to bed. All this wiring here, the lighting wiring that you see, needs to be tidied up. This has had, you will remember that there were a load of cable ties on this before. The reason there are not now is, despite all my care to put these sequentially in the right ones, I messed up. And what happened was that I was pressing buttons, nothing was happening. And it meant that I had some of these in the wrong place. So I had to go back, work them all out with John's help, and we got them all sorted. And that meant that all the lights that I thought were from the right toggles into the right sequence were in the wrong place. So nothing was really working. Only some of it was, but not all of it. So it was a process of elimination, going back to the start and getting it right. So what you must do, and especially easy if you're not doing such a complicated one, is to make sure that if this goes from 1 to 12 and this goes from 13 through to 25 or 24, sorry, then you must make sure that number 1 toggle is in number 1 hole and all the way through. What made mine a bit more difficult was because I'm not going from 1 to 24. I'm actually doing 13 through to 30. There are 6 spare ways here that are not at this time being used. Whether or not I introduce something later on can be done later on, but at the moment there is no need. So that meant that I had to have these sequentially done. And here too, there are 2 for each set of lights, and so therefore there are 6, 12, 18. Now those 6, 12, 18 are in fact 13, 18, 19 through to 24, and the last one's on here to 30. So that's how it was, and that's how easily I got completely messed up and had to go through an awful lot of stuff to make it happen. There is also another thing, that here we have the connectors, the ways in, the ways out. Now this is actually being seen as one panel. Although there are 2, they're joined and they're linked and given the same address. So that is just one. But then where the lights were concerned, I needed to create a much bigger wire. Now they only come that size, so what I ended up doing was cutting one of these in half and joining in, making sure of course I got exactly the right match on each side. It doesn't matter what wire you use, as long as you just make sure that if you put this particular one to the wrong one on the other side, nothing's going to work. It could even do some damage, I don't know. So I increased the width on this side. I've got one that runs all the way underneath to the other side here, and that links the 2 light boards. And then we've got the power here that goes onto the track bus, which is just for the lights. And of course we don't need individual power for the alpha encoders because they are connected to the black box with this RJ12 cable. So let's just turn this over now and let's just see. Before I do that, I'm going to be careful just to put that to one side because everything's really sort of messed up. I just wanted to show you this beautiful box that my friend has made for me. We're going to slot the top in here, and then I'm going to get a little bit of trim to go around to hold the lid in. And you can see that we have the DccConcepts control panel, the DAP panel, nicely set in place, and you can see it in there, and room has been made for it on the unit inside. So everything depth wise will take the panel, give clearance underneath. I will have to of course put another hole in the back here to take the feed cables out through to the track bus, which is already sitting there, and it's all connected to the ones already that will be used. And then I want to paint the whole of this and the top trim black before we finally put this one to bed. And of course I've got to do all of the sorting out on this wiring, etc, etc. But let me just turn it over. Let me just show you what's been done and what's happening. Now you can see, as I was when this lot come on, it was great. So I'm just going to put that out the way for a minute. So I've got to be a little bit careful because there's a lot of stuff here that's being squashed and shouldn't be being squashed. Just make sure I've got it about where I want it. Right, so obviously I'm taking a lot more care, but you can see that all of the lights are on, and what I've done is this is not operational, as I keep saying, but all these points are operational. Now what you do, and the nice thing about this, and I will demonstrate it on the smaller one when it comes to it, but where when you have your Pro Cab or Power Cab, whichever one you have and use, you have to go through putting the little button down on your cobalt point motor, and you push it down, and that puts it into the what's the word I'm trying to think of, the programming mode. I get there in the end. So it puts it in the programming mode, and when you do that, you then have to go into accessories and you give it the address and you confirm it, and then you go back. Okay, with this one, all you do is you put the button down for your cobalt motor, and you literally go boom, boom, the lights will change, and you go back and put the cobalt motor back out of programming mode, and it will have done it. It will have readdressed and sent the signals through the alpha encoder onto that point motor, and that is now addressed where you want it to. The only thing you've got to do is check whether it's on the right road or not. So if that's the case, and if it's on the correct road, that's fine. If it's not on the correct road, that's just as easy. All you do is put the button down again, go into here and just select accessory 197, enter, done. Put the button back up, and now you'll find that the road will have switched on the controller on the cobalt motor, so that when you press it, it will then face the correct road. And it's a 50-50 shot, you know, so it's a case of getting these. And again, with the lights, before you get to that point, it's a case of just checking when you flick this whether or not the lights are going the right way. If you flick it up, you want the light to go to there. If you flick this down, you want the light to go to there. Let me just demonstrate. It's up, that's fine, nothing's happening. If I press it down, then I expect that light to change, and maybe in the background you can hear one of the points changing. Let's just put it back up. These are a double slip. These we're still sorting out. Okay, there are 3 of them on here. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. 3 double slips. Bit of a nightmare. I'm beginning to wish that I'd done something different without double slips, because whilst they don't derail anything and they work fine, I don't know how to operate them. I think I'm turning a train one way, and only to find I've sent it somewhere else or derailed it. So learning how to use a double slip and putting a train down the right road, I'm not there yet, and I'm way off ever understanding. In fact, there's a 4th double slip right there. So there are 4 on here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Flipping nightmare, I've got to say. Anyway, at least we know that it's working. And today I've been running trains through the station, and I pulled one up here, and then I pulled another one through and altered the road. So this one operational. This is the down main, and this is the up main, and we have the other 2 platforms here. So I've just been having fun with this. For the first time, I've been able to sort of not sit and have to run up around the room and figure out what number of point I've got to change on this, come back, do it, make sure it's done, run back, check it, come back to do the next one. It's crazy. But here I can just flick, and I know that the roads are set and it's done. So this is going to be fantastic when it's all finished. And when you couple this up with the big one that's got to go over there for the marshalling yard, and the 2 smaller ones, which will be Sandling Junction. Anyway, I hope you've got something from this. I couldn't have done this without the help of my friend in building such wonderful boxes and helping me print this. The rest of it I did. And I've got to take credit for something. And also the massive amount of help that not only DccConcepts have given, but moreover John from DccConcepts, who is just absolutely mind-blowingly great, helpful, nothing's too much trouble, goes above and beyond, and yeah, fantastic. I cannot, and I've got to stress this right now, I cannot fault that company at all for its attitude towards all the people who buy products from it. Whether you're just beginning or whether you're a veteran at model railways, they have the time that you need to get it right, and they'll help you as much as they can. And if they can't, they'll try and point you in the right direction for someone else to help you. You cannot get much better quality of service and help from anyone. Now, I'm not getting anything for saying that. I tell it as I see it. And you know, if any of you know me from my other videos, you know I say what I think. And I just, there's no point in saying anything else. And I've got to say, those guys, you know, if I got money to spend on electronics and stuff, I would spend it there, because I know the backup is absolutely second to none. Sorry about that, guys. If you're getting a bit red-faced up at DccConcepts, you shouldn't be so nice and so knowledgeable and so good to your clients. Digress. But I couldn't have done it without them, so I've got to say that. Anyway, I'm going to move on now, and yeah, I'm going to play a bit more with this, have some fun, finish the wiring off, finish the box, paint it up, and I may just put a little clip in the back end just to show you the whole thing finished off and operational. I may do, I may not. I may just get the first one out and we'll see where we go. Anyway, all the best. Thanks for watching. Take care. Happy modeling. And if you attempt one of these, enjoy, have fun, because they really are. I'm glad I've taken the trouble. Bye for now, guys. Bye.